Okay children, today let's do revision for the topic plant tissues. Now, plant tissues are mainly divided into two groups based on their ability to divide or not to divide. So, if the plant's tissues can divide or if the cells can divide, they are put under the group called as meristematic tissue. The others which have lost the power to divide are put under the group called as the permanent tissue. So, what are the characteristics of meristematic tissue? So, we all know that the most important property of meristematic tissue is they can divide. They are actually undifferentiated cells which divide and form the whole plant body. Okay, so their cells are usually large cells with a dense cytoplasm and a large nucleus. Then, vacuoles are usually absent. Their cell wall is very thin. They are without any intercellular spaces. They are usually isodiametric cells, means the cells have almost the same radius on all sides. Then, based on the position in the plant body, there are three types, which are the apical meristem, intercalary meristem, and lateral meristem. Apical meristem is seen usually in the plant tip, that is shoot tip or the root tip. Now, in the branches also, always the tip of the plant will have apical meristem. Now, intercalary meristem is usually seen towards the base of the leaf, that is in the nodal region. So, this is the plant tip. So, this region is the tip of the plant. There will be apical meristem there. This is the nodal region from where a leaf arises. So, at the base of this leaf in the stalk, we have petiole. Now, petiole in the base, base of the petiole in the base, a nodal region, we can see the meristem called as intercalary meristem. Now, if we take a section of the plant and if you observe, we can see that there is a ring of tissue. If we take a section and see, we can see that there is a ring of tissue like this on the lateral sides of the plant. We call it as the lateral meristem. An example for that is cambium. So, the function of meristem is to increase the length or girth of the plant. Girth means thickness. So, length kootanum, grow cheyanum, thickness kootanum, all these are the functions of the meristematic tissue. Now coming to the permanent tissue. Permanent tissue is of two types based on the number or type of cell present in the tissue. If it is composed of same type of cells, we call it as a simple permanent tissue. If it is having more than one type of tissue cells in a tissue, we call it, that is more than one type of cell in a tissue, we call it as a complex tissue. Now, simple tissue is again classified into three types: parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Of this, parenchyma is the simplest type. It is having a cell wall made up of mainly of cellulose. Hemicellulose is also present. Usually they are arranged close together. Intercellular spaces. What is the meaning of intercellular spaces? The space between the cells may or may not be present. They are living cells. Here also the meristematic cells are actively dividing living cells. In the same way, parenchyma cells are living cells. Usually they have a thin wall, cytoplasm will be present, but they are all differentiated. All these are differentiated. Permanent tissue is a differentiated cell, means it has a fixed shape, a size and a function to do. So, all the permanent tissues are differentiated cells. So, here the parenchyma, we can see that the cells are isodiametric. Sometimes they are round shaped, sometimes they are lobed. Means so it can be lobed also, or it can be polygonal in shape. So in all these shapes we can see parenchyma cells. Then there does storage function also. In case of leaves and all, this parenchyma contain chloroplast. Then the parenchyma is called as chlorenchyma cell. So what will be the function? It helps photosynthesis. In aquatic plants, you can see that parenchyma is modified into another type called as aerenchyma. Means nothing, parenchyma cells with lot of intercellular spaces, the air-filled spaces. This will give buoyancy, or it will help the aquatic plants to float on surface of water. So that's it. Now, parenchyma also forms protective covering tissue in plants. Examples, epidermis and cord. Epidermis is the covering layer in soft herbaceous parts of the plant, whereas cork form a covering layer in woody plants. So there the epidermis is replaced by cork tissue. Epidermis in the porthu there is a waxy coating called as cuticle. Cork cells are formed of, they are actually dead cells. Their cell walls contain a substance called suberin, and they are compactly arranged without intercellular spaces. They form the bark of the tree, and they are impervious, means it will not allow air and water to pass through. So they form an insulation layer protecting the tree. Okay, so that's the function of it. So parenchyma, the functions can be, if it is chlorenchyma, it can do photosynthesis. If it is aerenchyma, it can provide a buoyancy to the plants, and mainly it does the function of storage. It stores various things in the plants. That is, sometimes it stores food, sometimes it stores waste, sometimes it can store pigment. All these things are stored in parenchyma cells. Now, cell wall is thin and usually made up of cellulose and hemicellulose. They are living cells. Here you can see that there is a large vacuole present in the cell. So the cytoplasm is seen towards the periphery, means towards the side of the cell. If this is a mature parenchyma cell, you can see that the entire portion of the cell is filled with a large central vacuole. And you can see cytoplasm and all other things towards the periphery of the cell like this. And you will see the nucleus and all other things towards the side. So this is the case of differentiated plant cells. So the vacuole is forming or filling the entire most regions of the plant cell. Now, next one is collenchyma. Collenchyma is also a living tissue. It also comes under simple permanent tissue. It is special in that the corners of the cell wall is thickened. It is thickened with a substance called as pectin. So it contains cellulose, hemicellulose. In addition to that, it also contains a substance called as pectin. Here the corners of the cell walls are thickened. So the most important feature is that the cells are without any intercellular spaces. So they are compactly arranged cells. They are usually seen just below the epidermis. The stem in the outer layer is called as the epidermis. Then there is a region called as hypodermis. So usually they are present in the hypodermal region. Leaf in the epidermis to give flexibility and elasticity to the plant part, they are seen just below the epidermis. So that is the function of it. Here parenchyma is the bulk of the plant body formed. Plant body is the place parenchyma. So they form almost all parts of the plant, parenchyma, and it gets modified into all other type of plant cells. So collenchyma, the main function is to give elasticity and flexibility to the plant part. Other than that, since its corners are thickened and all, it can give mechanical support also. So the cell wall material is cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So they are also living cell. Why do we call it as a living cell? If a cell contains cytoplasm and nucleus, or at least cytoplasm, we call it as a living cell. So we can say that collenchyma is a living cell. Then comes the next simple permanent tissue, that is sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma is composed of dead cells. Why do we call it as a dead cell? It is without any cytoplasm and nucleus. The cell wall becomes highly thickened, and inside the cell there is just a cavity. We call it as lumen. Okay, so if this is a cell, inside cytoplasm, nucleus, nothing is there. The cell wall will get highly thickened like this. And the thickening will goes on increasing every time. It will be increasing like this. It will form more and more thick. And finally the lumen, this is the lumen inside. The cavity is called lumen. So this lumen becomes very narrow. But you can see that there are small unthickened areas. Such unthickened areas are called pits. They are called as the pits. So pits are also present in the sclerenchyma cells. Their main function is to give support and mechanical strength to the plant body. So that is the function of sclerenchyma. Based on the shape of the sclerenchyma cells, there are two types. If they are long and elongated, we call them as fibers. If they are irregularly thickened and rounded cells, we call it as sclerids. We coconut husk is formed of fibers, sclerenchyma fibers. Whereas cherata coconut shell, that is formed of sclerids. Sclerids also gives grittiness to fruits. Chela fruits are even Adam sclerids ulladukondana. So that is about the sclerenchyma. Now coming to the complex tissue. So complex tissue in plants is of two types, xylem and phloem. Both of them are conducting tissue or the vascular tissue. What's the meaning of it? They will transport materials within the plant body. Now, what does xylem transport? Xylem transports water and minerals from the root to various parts of the plant body. And phloem, they transport prepared food from the leaves to all parts of the plant body. Now, xylem and phloem both are having four components or four types of cells inside. Why are they considered as complex tissue? Because they are having more than one type of cell. Now, xylem consists of tracheids, vessels, fibers and xylem parenchyma. Tracheids are short elongated cells, whereas vessels are somewhat long elongated cells. So these cells will help to carry water. They are cylindrical cells. So they are like hoses or they are like the tubes which can allow water passage through them. So upward movement of water is through the tracheids or through mainly in larger plants, it is mainly through the vessels. Now, for supporting this xylem tissue, in between there is fibers also, dead cells called as fibers. Tracheids, vessels and fibers, all the three are dead cells. Why they are dead cells? They are without cytoplasm and nucleus. Their function is just to carry water. They act like a tube, just carrying water. Now, there are living cells called as xylem parenchyma. They help lateral or sidewise transport and also help storage. Okay, now coming to phloem. Phloem is composed of four elements or four type of cells or components, that is seed tubes, companion cells, phloem fibers and phloem parenchyma. Seed tubes are also elongated tubular cells with end walls perforated. ഇങ്ങനെ ട്യൂബ് പോലെ ഇരിക്കാം. ഈ ട്യൂബിന്റെ ഇതാണ് എൻഡ് വാൾ. ഈ എൻഡ് വാളിലൊക്കെ ഇങ്ങനെ സീവ് ഏരിയാസ് ഉണ്ട്. നമ്മൾ അരിപ്പ് പോലുള്ള regions. So sieve areas are one of the identifying feature of sieve tubes. So sieve areas are present in the sieve tubes. Then along with this the sieve tube, you can see a cell like this. This cell is with nucleus and cytoplasm. It is a living cell. Always seen attached to the or seen along with the sieve tube. They are called as the companion cell. Companion means a friend. So sieve tube in the companion are a companion cell. Okay. The reason is that sieve tube is a living cell because it contains cytoplasm, but nucleus is absent. So the movement inside the sieve tube is controlled by the companion cell. So sieve tube is living cell without nucleus. Now, companion cells are living cells with cytoplasm and nucleus. Actually, they are seen attached to the sieve tube controlling its function. Then comes phloem fibers. They are the only dead cells in the phloem tissue. So, they give mechanical support. Then there are phloem parenchyma for storage and lateral transport. So, in the phloem case, phloem fibers which are living ആണ്. Xylem case, xylem parenchyma which are dead. So this is all about the plant tissues. Okay, so I think now it is very clear to you. This is a summarization of plant tissue so that it's easy for you to revise these topics.